A truly massive and mind-bending report circulating in the Kremlin today, issued by the System of Forward-Looking Military Research and Development, SFLMRD, branch of the Ministry of Defense, MOD, is warning that a new threat to the national security of the Federation has been detected in the very heartland of the United States that they describe as an ancient crystalline structure made/created by a race of giants who lived on the island of Atlantis and which is now attempting to rise again to the surface of our Earth. According to this report, at 0300+3 GMT on September 3, Cosmos 2499 detected a massive piezoelectric discharge event emanating across a large section of North America, bordered on the east by the geological formations known as the Wyoming Craton, Cheyenne Belt, High Plains, and Colorado Plateau, and on the west by the Snake River Plain and Basin and Range Province, and whose northern and southern dimensions including both northern Alaska and southern Mexico. Occurring simultaneously with this massive piezoelectric discharge event, in the state of Idaho on September 2 at 1800-7 GMT, this report details, was a 5.3 magnitude main shock earthquake that set off an earthquake swarm which has now entered into the state of Utah, and that set off a continuing spiral of other piezoelectric events that include 1. The mysterious September 5 crash of a U.S. fighter jet in Nevada. 2. The mysterious September 6 crash of 2 more U.S. fighter jets in Nevada. 3. The mysterious lights seen across Mexico after the September 7 massive 8.1 magnitude earthquake occurred. 4. The mysterious flashes of light seen over Los Angeles on September 9. 5. Bizarre wind storms that struck San Francisco on September 11. 6. The massive electrical storm that struck San Francisco the following day, September 12. 7. The mysterious lights spotted in skies over Salt Lake City, Utah, on September 16. Piezoelectricity, this report explains, is electricity resulting from pressure and heat that accumulates in solid materials, most particularly crystals, which are a solid material whose constituents, such as atoms, molecules, or ions, are arranged in a highly ordered microscopic structure that form a lattice structure that extends in all directions, and whose oldest example of on Earth is an olivine mineral diamond called ringwoodite. SFLMRD Dr. Scientists writing in this report state that the full knowledge of ringwoodite is critical to understanding the grave threat to national security the Federation is now facing, and that had only been found in meteorites until 2014. When evidence of its occurrence deep in our planet's mantle showed that there is from 1 to 3 times the world ocean's equivalent of water existing deep within our Earth at depths varying between from 410 to 660 kilometers deep. Not being told the Western peoples, this report explains, is that what constitutes the core of our Earth has never been proven, and that over the past 100 years has gone from being described as having an iron core, to today, for example, Professor Alessandro Toschi, from the Vienna University of Technology, Technische Universität Wien, proving that iron's presence in the Earth's core cannot alone explain our planet's magnetic field, and that has led him to theorize that the Earth's core contains up to 20% nickel. Russian doctor scientists, however, this report continues, have long known that our Earth's core as it relates to its magnetic field can only be explained by accepting the fact that water is our planet's largest crystal, and whose amounts in the deepest parts of planet are staggering to comprehend, but as explained by the world-renowned geochemist Graham Pearson, of the University of Alberta, who after the 2014 discovery of the ringwoodite diamond crystal stated, "The diamond from Brazil confirms that the models are correct. Olivine is ringwoodite at this depth, a layer called the mantle transition zone. And it resolves a long-running debate about water in the mantle transition zone. The ringwoodite is 1.5% water, present not as a liquid but as hydroxide ions, oxygen and hydrogen molecules bound together. The results suggest there could be a vast store of water in the mantle transition zone, which stretches from 254 to 410 miles, 410 to 660 kilometers, deep. It translates into a very, very large mass of water, approaching the sort of mass of water that's present in all the world's ocean. Western scientists, however, this report notes, remain terrified of this monumental and historic discovery as it overturns everything they've been taught to believe, most especially because what is now confirmed to be as true, was, actually, described thousands of years ago in the Bible, and as many American religious scholars wrote about saying. In yet another confirmation of the Bible's accuracy, scientists have now confirmed what Scripture refers to as the fountains of the deep. In the days of Noah and the Ark, these large pools of water beneath the Earth's crust burst forth onto the surface, providing the massive amounts of water needed for the global flood judgment. What has once been a source of skepticism and mockery for those who doubt the Bible, has now been confirmed by secular scientists, again showing that although written over 3,000 years ago, the Bible's description of the Earth and its natural properties are indeed accurate. And in an equally stunning blow to these Western scientists, this report continues, have been the events occurring since the 1980 catastrophic eruption of Mount St. Helens in the state of Washington, and whose events over these past 37 years have conclusively proved that the geological events said to have taken place over billions of years, instead, prove that they only need a few thousand years, thus, and again, exactly matching the biblical timeline of how old our Earth really is. Not just these proofs, either, are Western scientists terrified of, either, this report says, but, also, the complete collapsing of their entire evolutionary theories too, and that include 1. Far from proving evolution, carbon-14 dating actually provides some of the strongest evidence for creation in a young Earth. Radiocarbon, carbon-14, cannot remain naturally in substances for millions of years because it decays relatively rapidly. For this reason, it can only be used to obtain ages in the range of tens of thousands of years. 2. Scientists from the rate, radioisotopes and the age of the Earth project examined diamonds that evolutionists consider to be 1–2 billion years old and related to the Earth's early history. Diamonds are the hardest known substance and extremely resistant to contamination through chemical exchange. Yet the rate scientists discovered significant detectable levels of radiocarbon in these diamonds, dating them at around 55,000 years, a far cry from the evolutionary billions. 3. The gravitational pull of the Moon creates a tidal bulge on Earth that causes the Moon to spiral outwards very slowly. Because of this effect, the Moon would have been closer to the Earth in the past. Based on gravitational forces and the current rate of recession, we can calculate how much the Moon has moved away over time. If the Earth is only 6,000 years old, there's no problem, because in that time the Moon would have only moved about 800 feet, 250 m. But most astronomy books teach that the Moon is over 4 billion years old, which poses a major dilemma. Less than 1.5 billion years ago the Moon would have been touching the Earth. 4. Like other planets, the Earth has a magnetic field that is decaying quite rapidly. We are now able to measure the rate at which the magnetic energy is being depleted and develop models to explain the data. Secular scientists invented a dynamo model of the Earth's core to explain how the field could have lasted over such a long period of time, but this model fails to adequately explain the data for the rapid decay and the rapid reversals that it has undergone in the past. It also cannot account for the magnetic fields of other planets, such as Neptune and Mercury. However, the creationist model, based on the Genesis flood, effectively and simply explains the data in regard to the Earth's magnetic field, providing striking evidence that the Earth is only thousands of years old and not billions. 5. In recent years, there have been many findings of wondrously preserved biological materials in supposedly ancient rock layers and fossils. One such discovery that has left evolutionists scrambling is a fossilized Tyrannosaurus rex femur with flexible connective tissue, branching blood vessels, and even intact cells. According to evolutionists, these dinosaur tissues are more than 65 million years old, but laboratory studies have shown that there is no known way and likely none possible for biological material to last more than thousands of years. 5. It's amazing what basic mathematics can show us about the age of the Earth. We can calculate the years of human existence with the population doubling every 150 years, a very conservative figure, to get an estimate of what the world's population should be after any given period of time. A biblical age of the Earth, about 6,000 years, is consistent with the numbers yielded by such a calculation. In contrast, even a conservative evolutionary age of 50,000 years comes out to a staggering, impossibly high figure of 10 to the 99th power greater than the number of atoms in the universe. Clearly, the claim that humans have inhabited the Earth for tens of thousands of years is absurd. 6. When solid rock is bent, it normally cracks and breaks. Rock can only bend without fracturing when it is softened by extreme heating, which causes recrystallization, or when the sediments have not yet fully hardened. There are numerous locations around the world, including the famous Grand Canyon, where we observe massive sections of strata that have been tightly folded, without evidence of the sediments being heated. This is a major problem for evolutionists who believe these rock layers were laid down gradually over vast eons of time, forming the geologic record. However, it makes perfect sense to creationists who believe these layers were formed rapidly in the global, catastrophic flood described in Genesis. By their overturning these completely discredited myths concocted by Western scientists in order to hide the true history of our world, in order to discredit the Bible and humanity's most ancient historically renderings, this report continues, SFLMRD Dr. Scientists have, instead, embraced reality by including them in order to describe the truth of the grave danger now facing the Federation, and that begins by their asserting that Atlantis had never been in the Atlantic Ocean, but was, instead, located in the middle of what is now the United States and that is known today as the Western Interior Seaway. Plato's dialogues Timaeus and Critias, written in 360 BC, this report details, contain the earliest references to Atlantis, and that state. For it is related in our records how once upon a time your state stayed the course of a mighty host, which, starting from a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean, was insolently advancing to attack the whole of Europe, and Asia to boot. For the ocean there was at that time navigable, for in front of the mouth which you Greeks call, as you say, the Pillars of Heracles, there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together, and it was possible for the travelers of that time to cross from it to the other islands, and from the islands to the whole of the continent over against them which encompasses that veritable ocean. For all that we have here, lying within the mouth of which we speak, is evidently a haven having a narrow entrance, but that yonder is a real ocean, and the land surrounding it may most rightly be called, in the fullest and truest sense, a continent. Now in this island of Atlantis there existed a confederation of kings, of great and marvelous power, which held sway over all the island, and over many other islands also and parts of the continent. And that according to Critias, too, a war took place between those outside the Pillars of Hercules at the Strait of Gibraltar and those who dwelt within them. The Atlanteans had conquered the parts of Libya within the Pillars of Hercules, as far as Egypt, and the European continent as far as Tyrrhenia, and had subjected its people to slavery. The Athenians led an alliance of resistors against the Atlantean Empire, and as the alliance disintegrated, prevailed alone against the empire, liberating the occupied lands. But afterwards there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea. For which reason the sea in those parts is impassable and impenetrable, because there is a shoal of mud in the way, and this was caused by the subsidence of the island. The violent earthquakes and floods that destroyed Atlantis, this report explains, match exactly those events and timelines described in the Bible relating to Noah's flood, where God destroyed the world by his unleashing the fountains of deep that not only flooded the earth, but, also, completely re-altered its geology. To the remnants of the Atlantean peoples who survived Noah's flood, this report details, the ancient peoples of the Americas provide historical evidence, such as the Mayan peoples of Mesoamerica, and who in their most ancient writings describing the giants known as the Bacabs, stated that they were four gods who had fled Atlantis before its destruction. With the western interior seaway of North America being drained after Noah's flood, and that had, also, destroyed the island of Atlantis, this report continues, further evidence of where the few remaining Atlantean giants dispersed to is littered throughout the ancient stories of the indigenous peoples of the Americas too, and as written in the historical record that includes 1. From the Choctaw peoples, Horatio Bardwell Cushman wrote in his 1899 book History of the Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Natchez Indians, the tradition of the Choctaws told of a race of giants that once inhabited the now state of Tennessee, and with whom their ancestors fought when they arrived in Mississippi in their migration from the west. Their tradition states the Naholo, race of giants, was of wonderful stature. 2. From the Comanche peoples, Chief Rolling Thunder of the Comanches, a tribe from the Great Plains, gave the following account of an ancient race of white giants in 1857, innumerable moons ago, a race of white men, 10 feet high, and far more rich and powerful than any white people now living, here inhabited a large range of country, extending from the rising to the setting sun. Their fortifications crowned the summits of the mountains, protecting their populous cities situated in the intervening valleys. 3. From the Navajo peoples, Yeats also writes of the Starnake people of Navajo legend, describing them as a regal race of white giants endowed with mining technology who dominated the West, enslaved lesser tribes, and had strongholds all through the Americas. They were either extinguished or went back to the heavens. 4. From the Manta peoples, in 1864, Pedro de Cieza de Leon wrote in Chronicle of Peru about legendary giants described to him by the Manta indigenous people. There are, however, reports concerning giants in Peru, who landed on the coast at the point of Santa Elena. The natives relate the following tradition, which had been received from their ancestors from very remote times. 5. From the Paiute peoples, the Paiutes are said to have an oral tradition that told of red-haired, white, cannibals about 10 feet tall who lived in or near what is now known as Lovelock Cave in Nevada. Outside of the Americas, this report further notes, other historical recordings of where these Atlantean giants dispersed to when Atlantis was destroyed appear in the 15th century annals of Clonmacnois of ancient Irish history that described them as living by piracy and spoils of other nations, and were in those days very troublesome to the whole world, and, of course, in the Old Testament Bible, where in the book of Numbers, chapter 13, verses 32 to 33, it was written, so they gave out to the sons of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone, in spying it out, is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. There also we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak are part of the Nephilim, and we became like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. Based upon these ancient historical records that recorded the dispersal of these Atlantean giants, this report concludes, SFLMRD Dr. Scientists have determined that the location of Atlantis was an island in the western interior seaway of North America and whose location today is known as the Yellowstone Volcano Caldera and where thousands of earthquakes are now occurring causing fears of its imminent eruption but whose real/true cause is the re-rising of Atlantis and that the ancient Book of Revelation, also, described by its warning the peoples of today. Then the fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from heaven to earth, and it was given the key to the pit of the abyss. The star opened the pit of the abyss, and smoke rose out of it like the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by the smoke from the pit. And out of the smoke, locusts descended on the earth, and they were given power like that of the scorpions of the earth.